Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthony Tharp. It's April 4th, 2023 at 10:25 a.m. In the continental USA peninsula, Florida. I'm by the water today. It's nice out, but hot. So I just shortened my walk. They say African descendants or black people have the highest deficiency of vitamin D in the US because we're always hiding from the sun. I wonder why. We were born in the sun, but that's what they say factually is correct, that we have to take vitamin D supplements. It's just too hot out there right now. So I'm here making another insert. As I've said to you in the past, full disclosure, I'm doing these videos, informational videos, about events that's happening with me, my business partners, and even family members, having to do with the judiciary, and specifically the judiciary in Jamaica. And why it's important that I'm doing this. These are personal experiences that can be verified. This isn't just somebody coming on air and talking about events that I heard from somebody else. These are actual events that I have experienced and I'm currently going through. And so in real time, I'm giving you this information so that if it doesn't happen to you, at least you have the information. If you know somebody that's going through issues in the courts, at least you have the information that you could share and let them know they're not crazy about what they perceive as being unfair biased treatment by the judges in the court and unfair treatment in favor of attorneys in the courts. And if you go there as a pro se litigant, and a pro se litigant is a litigant that represents themselves, and under the Constitution, in most countries you're allowed to do that. You can, in the US you can't represent anybody else, but the Jamaica Constitution does allow you to represent yourself and anybody else. As a matter of fact, the Constitution states clearly that a person in the judicial system or in the court system has the option of selecting any party they want to represent them. And I raise that matter because, again, judges in the court, either they don't know the rules of the court or they're trying to play with us because they figure we're pro se and we don't know the rules or the law. Because I was in court a couple of months ago on a family matter. A family member asked me to just sit in for them and represent them. And when I got in court, the judge is going to say, oh, I can't represent the person. Jamaica hasn't gotten to that stage yet. Of course, I didn't raise any issues because I know she wasn't telling the truth. And maybe it's her truth because she doesn't know the rules. So, but the fact is that was wrong. You can check it out in the Constitution yourself. Read it, the Constitution, in the section that goes about the judiciary and your due process rights. It tells you clearly that you can choose anybody to represent you, any party that's in court. So either from a real life person, an entity, the Constitution say you can select, and that makes sense because if you're going into court and you're comfortable with somebody representing you, that's who you should have represent you. Not be forced to accept or take up services from an attorney who is going to sell you out. Because you know that when you go to court, whatever the attorney decides or come to agreement with the court, that you're stuck with that, right? So you have to establish that first and foremost, if you do have an attorney, it's not what you say is what I want. And before you make any kind of decision with the court or to the judge, you consult me first and give me all the details. Because again, this is about exposing how corrupt the judicial processes are in Jamaica and possibly other islands as well, other parts of the world where you have colonization and we inherited a judicial system that's corrupt. Yet I say that on one hand and raise the issue on the other, that in first world countries, I know certainly the UK, there are elements of corruption, yes, must be, because wherever you have humans working, they always find ways to undermine the system for their own benefit. But it's not as widespread or are allowed to happen as vulgarly as it is happening in Jamaica. And as I said in yesterday's video, which was April 3rd, 2023, if you look at organizations around the world that report on corruption, Jamaica is in the top groupings of corruption. And so it's widespread, it's well documented, it's known, and yet we go about our business in Jamaica as if it's okay. It's okay for judges to behave this way. And I'm talking about the courts, because in my opinion, the court is the last resort for most people, and that's where you go to resolve issues. And when you have corruption in the court, then it's going to be widespread throughout society. I'm not talking about police or all of that kind of stuff. Police are corrupt all over the world, and the same thing happens. Every part of the world you're going to find corruption. But in Jamaica, I target the courts because I have come to the understanding that if you have a judicial system or persons working in there that are corrupt, the entire system of government is undermined. Your entire rights as a citizen under the Constitution of Jamaica is undermined. So it's important. And we're not going to be done with this whole ruling that Justice Ty made, and the appeals court upheld it on the 31st of March 2023, talking about developers are operating illegally, and therefore the whole string and cascade of illegal events that come out of that one ruling, undermining the entire economy. And while a lot of people might just sit there and pretend it's not happening, or they don't know the importance of it or the significance of it, is that I outlined a few things yesterday which I'm hoping you pay attention to, because it's those things that come back down the road to haunt you, and then you'd have sat there and the harm would have been based on your action or inaction. I think every citizen that's conscious in their country should be actively participating in the process of challenging the persons we put in charge to manage our affairs. But beyond that, we have a constitution, and a very good constitution. I hear a whole lot of people out there, change the constitution, change the constitution. There is no need to change the constitution. What we need to do is change persons we put in place to manage their affairs, our affairs, and get people with credibility and integrity and honesty to handle our business. There's nothing wrong with the Jamaica Constitution. There might be a few issues that people are now raising about people who want to their sexual deviation or inclination. There are issues that are being raised there, but those are things that can be worked out in law. In fact, the Constitution doesn't even describe anything about homosexuality or being gay or being married if you're gay or all of that. And in fact, the only thing is one has to do if you're gay and you want to partner up or buddy up with somebody of your own sex, then just stop fighting the establishment and stop trying to take away from people who have become accustomed to marriage as defined between men and women. What's so big about you just taking a designation for yourself? Why is it up in your face attitude of most gay people? Well, I wouldn't say most. The activists, they are so up in your face that you must accept everything. You watch Netflix, even when the movie or the video or whatever they presented has nothing at all to do with homosexuality, all of a sudden this whole thing is in your face. People have their rights and their beliefs, and you should respect it as well. If you're gay and you want to play that game, that's your business. I don't advocate anybody going out and abusing you or targeting you. But just as I oppose people who are of opposite sex being in the street and vulgarly displaying sexuality, I'm not talking about kissing or hugging. I'm talking about people who do really outrageous things sexually in public. I object to that, and I don't want that to be up in anybody's face. If you want to explore all the things you want to explore in your sexuality, go do it, but do it in the privacy of your home, or some hotel or some place. Don't have it in the streets. put it in films and then put it in our faces. We're watching movies, and some people get offended by that, and Netflix and all of them just keep pushing this agenda. And why? You want people to live and get on, respect everybody. All right, you want to be respected as a gay person, respect a person who isn't gay. Stop pushing this heavy agenda in faces of people who grew up and their biological construction says they are to be straight and not gay. You don't go out and push your business up in their face and think they must accept it. It's wrong. Just like you don't want us to come bully you into accepting our lifestyle. We don't want you to do the same thing. But that's what Netflix is doing, Hollywood is doing, and a whole bunch of other people. As I said, I don't advocate anybody abusing anybody or taking advantage, or if that's your lifestyle, that's your lifestyle. But don't push it in anybody's face that's not. And I'm going through that because I was talking about the Constitution and the Jamaican Constitution. I know people are advocating this language about changing the Constitution. I hear the Prime Minister talking about changing the Constitution, and they talk about it casually as if they can just go in Parliament and change it. No, they've done it in the past, and they think they've gotten away with it, but a lot of the changes that they've put into place so far is unconstitutional, because what we have is a written constitution in Jamaica, and it says the tenets of the Constitution are entrenched. That means you can't just go in and pass a law and change it. A 2/3 majority of the voting public or population of the country, the electorate, have to vote in a referendum to make changes to your constitution. So before you just start running up and down and shooting off more about change constitution, read the Constitution. You have political leaders or elected officials going in there and playing around with making changes to the Constitution without first going through a referendum. So if that is challenged legally, all those changes are challenged legally, then they have to be overthrown, because the Constitution is the law of the land. And when a judge makes a decision, when anybody makes a decision, whether you're in government or not, and you pass things in Parliament, the Constitution states clearly you can't overrule this Constitution. And the only way you could change the Constitution again legally is to have an elected a referendum where 2/3 majority of the nation votes on the issue and accepts it or denies it or rejects it. So again, people, get educated, know your stuff, know your life, know your Constitution, know your rights. It's important, because that's how people take advantage of us. And I referenced yesterday about this whole taking us out of Africa. We shouldn't forget, black people shouldn't forget our history. They say humans have amnesic history, meaning we quickly forget our history. And then we figure when things are happening again, it's so new, and then we have to, this is a new experience for generations down the road. When in truth and in fact, when you go back to history and you check documentations, you find things are so recurring. And they recur because we have not learned our lesson. So learn the facts about your life, know your environment. A wise old man once told me, if you're dealing with anything, business or otherwise, the first thing you'd learn to do is understand your environment. Because if you don't understand your environment, you can't navigate that environment and be successfully in control of your destiny. And what that means is, if you have a yard and you plan on doing something in the yard, you don't just run out and do it. You sit, you study your yard, you figure out what needs to be done, how you can do it, why it won't cause damage here, how it's going to be beneficial to me here by doing this. The same thing is in our everyday environment, where we live in groups called, whether villages, town, districts, cities, or countries. We live in environments made up of people, and we have to learn to navigate those environments if we are to be successful. So just going out, getting up, eating food, working, paying your bills, that's not understanding your environment. You're setting up yourself for a major downfall or calamity in your life and your life of your children or your future generations. And you're here to make sure that the future generation of our people and our children are as improved as we possibly can. The whole objective of life is to create the best lifestyle for everybody, and everybody working towards a common end of empowering ourselves positively. And so because of all of that, we know we don't put up with abuse of people's lives and rights, because it's wrong and it undermines our society. We have an elected government because we want people to know they have a role to play on the planet. They have a right to make a decision who manages their affairs or not. And so we worked out a system of democracy in our instance. And so we put people in place to manage our affairs. And if we don't like what they're doing, then we get rid of them. And we're not talking about getting rid of them physically. That's not democratic. In some countries that do that, that's not what we advocate for in Western democracy. So that, in short, know your constitution, know your rights, because that's how you're going to be able to protect them in the first place. So as I said earlier, I'm doing these videos so people who come across them, who might be going through similar situations, or are going to be in courts anywhere in Jamaica or the world, be aware of the things that go on behind the scenes, the undermined things that you need to be aware of, so that you can take action to counter them, because ultimately that is going to make sure you are successful or not. Because if you understand your environment, chances are you know how to make the best decisions. That's going to be the best thing for you and yours. So, back to Jamaica and back to our situation and this ruling with the appeals court. It's important that you get involved. It's important. You have money in banks. You have money in credit unions. Most of you own property or intend to own property. And you don't want to have assets where you don't have control. Because in reality, if this thing gets out and gets out in the world as we know it, and now we're not even talking about just Jamaica, if this gets out in the world and the instability that this ruling created, banks in Jamaica are going to collapse. There's no ifs and buts about it. A lot of us who live in the US or around the world aren't even aware that in the US, I think from 2015 all the way to present, there are several banks that have been collapsing behind the scenes, and the FDIC going and quietly take them over, or arrange so that they function as if nothing went wrong. Do your research. Go online and Google banks that collapse over the last 10 years, and you'll see banks collapse every day. And in a country like here, like the US, the economy is fairly stable and is fairly under the control of the federal government, and they manipulate it in such a way that you shouldn't have a collapse. And when you have banks collapsing, it's deliberately done so that it's called purging the system. That's how democracy and capitalism works. So don't think Jamaica is immune from any of that. And when it collapses and you have millions of dollars in the bank, you don't want to go down there and here you can only get back 1.2 million when you've lost $10 million. You don't want to go out and tomorrow when you go to the insurance company to cover your damages, whether water damage, hurricane damage, the insurance company can say, listen, these homes were illegally built. These homes were illegally built by developers who were not licensed, and therefore everything is illegal. Every agreement they entered with you is illegal. Every agreement they entered with the banks are illegal. So we're not going to honor any insurance policy we have with you. No payout of benefits if you have a dilemma. These things do happen, will happen, and if you aren't conscious to fix the issues now, and why I'm saying this now, you need to step up and help to fix the issue. I'm not in favor of collapsing banks or crashing the economy, but that's what the judges in this matter, appeal number 64 of 2018, Carif Limited versus Valerie King, ruled that basically let the economy crash. This is our belief, and this is what, and ignoring the law. And when that economy crashes, of course, people lose jobs, you lose your homes, you lose everything, health benefits, and that results in increased criminal activity. So there is a cascade of events that comes out of rulings of importance like this one out of the courts. Most people don't understand the significance of this ruling. But you need to get conscious of it and reach out to your banks, make them conscious that this kind of ruling did happen or has happened, and give them the case number that I quoted earlier, and tell them to go get their attorneys and fight it. Get their attorneys, and they figure out how they're going to deal with it, because I've worked out how I'm going to deal with the nonsense. And that doesn't involve appealing anything to any court anywhere in Jamaica, because I'm tired of the corruption and the underhandedness and the ignorance. Are you incapable of managing the job you have as a judge? Simplistic people. Sorry. Because this ruling had two effects. One, it says they won't honor the contracts that Valerie King signed, even though we have investors who put in money based on her invitation. Because the developer, my company, didn't have didn't have a real estate dealer's license, which under the law we're not required to have. And again, the law no longer technically exists, because the judges, when they made that ruling, they actually changed the law. Alright? So that law technically doesn't exist now. So what the judges are saying is that before we can enter any agreement, and I see that's nonsense, of course, but we need to go get registered, not registered, to get a dealer's license, a real estate dealer's license. So it's important that you understand what's going on and the significance of this ruling. And maybe when these judges were acting nefariously or irresponsibly, because I think they were trying to get back at me, not realizing that they're digging a cavern that they can't get out of themselves, because they can't explain this. How are you going to rule against the law of the land when the Constitution says you don't have no right to make that ruling? You can't change the law as a judge in Jamaica. But you went ahead and did it anyway. And then you're going to say the other grounds on which you rule this matter is because Mrs. King was confused. And I'll point out again, how could you be confused after having people's documents for more than 2 weeks? Took it to your attorney, explained it. We explained it to you 4 times. You came, we asked you, do you understand the agreement? You say you do. And then you come into court with some knucklehead attorney, because the attorney knows you're going to get away with it, because they have some knucklehead judges who are irresponsible. Because it's your irresponsibility or irresponsible action that's crashing this economy. 4 owners, 4 judges never thought about the gamut or the extent of a decision like this before they did it. Because even if you're trying to get back at me, the only way to get back at me is to rule in my favor and get me out of the court. You don't want me there, that's fine. Rule in my favor and get me out. I have a responsibility to my partners, and I'm going to fight to protect them, which is what I've been doing for the last 16 years. And despite all the games they're playing in court, I am protecting my partners. That's my fiduciary responsibility. And regardless of the games you don't want to play, you have to realize that there are people out here that are intelligent, and we're not going to put up with no garbage, right? Our ancestors never fight for our freedom to become subjects now of people who sit on a bench that we hire to take care of our business honestly, and then lose our rights and human rights because you sit up there and whatever reason you made this decision. And I really at this point don't care. What you need to do is, if you're a judge with any kind of integrity, you go sit down and you find a way to fix it. You screwed up. Because again, the other ground that they used about Mrs. King was confused. Which judge in Jamaica is qualified to make any kind of decision about who is confused and who isn't confused? Are you a medical person? You have a doctorate? You have a psychology degree? Or are you a psychologist or a psychiatrist? I don't think any of you don't have or are qualified or practicing or legally licensed to make any kind of decision about any kind of person's mental state. Nor is this attorney. No expert witnesses were brought in to say Mrs. King is confused. And this is a medical decision. When you say somebody is confused, it's not, after you read documents and say you're confused, or you're not confused and you understand, you're going to come into court almost from 2000 2007 to 2018 and say you're confused, and that's the basis. So between that 12-year period, yeah, you could have gotten mentally ill during that 12-year period, but not when you signed the agreement. But no judge, the point I'm making is, this is how foolish we are in Jamaica. We sit down and think, once we put a judge on a bench, that judge has extra perceptive abilities, that they have this sudden burst of genius traits, that they can figure out everything and everything. And in truth and in fact, that's the most ignorant position a judge can take. A judge is there to administer justice. And if you don't know something, just go do the research. Do the research like everybody else. So before you made a ruling about Mrs. King being confused, what you should have done was brought in psychologists and have Mrs. King assessed. Let them run her through some procedure to determine, is Mrs. King mentally okay? Was she mentally okay when she made this decision? That's how you make a decision whether somebody is confused or not, especially when you're making a decision that is going to affect the entire nation. So, you tell me, it's 10:51 a.m. and I'm still pondering this nonsense about you ruling on the basis that Mrs. King is confused. And in fact, I pulled up, just for my satisfaction and just for persons hearing this, I want you to understand how significant this ruling is and how it shows us why John Kerry made the statement the Jamaican judiciary is dysfunctional. And when he says that, he's not just talking about a structural organization. He's talking about the people who operate within that system, who run the system. So what he was truly saying was the people we have managing and running the judiciary are intellectually challenged. They are dysfunctional. Because you don't have judges going in and making decisions off of the top of their head. Go sleep tonight, eat too much food, and because you're uncomfortable, you come in and make a decision based on your discomfort. You're a judge, you need to go get information that serves the purpose of letting the people in the country know that you have made the best decision based on expert advice, based on facts, based on the law, and not just something you just dream up because you like an attorney. And it was so funny in court now because when Mr. Williams come into court, they have the court set up in such a way that it's prejudicial. They have attorneys sitting on an elevated platform, right? They have judges, of course, put on a podium. And I could say, all right, put them on there so everybody could see them. But the reason I do it is the psychology. In business, if you are the person in charge, when you go to a conference, you want your chair to be the highest chair in the room. It's just psychology. So they elevate these judges up there to give people that they are in control, they know everything, the decision is going to be left with them. Fine. But when you set up in a democratic system where the Constitution says everybody has a right to be in court, then no attorney is supposed to have an elevated position because you're prejudicing the other person's case. So in Jamaica courts, what they build up this platform, put the attorneys to sit in the platform, and if you go in there as a pro se litigant, self-representing litigant, they give you one chair to the side. So on top of you have the attorneys that overlook you, the judges that overlook you, and they look down on you. The psychology of it. Because what they're saying, you are inferior to us. They're there to handle your business, because the courts weren't set up to deal with attorneys and judges. They're there to facilitate people coming into court. But they structure the physical layout of the court so that you in one hole. They sit up there, the judge, for sure say, alright, we higher than these attorneys. The attorneys are higher than us. And that's why when you hear them talking about my learned this and my learned sister and my learned garbage piece of crap, and this honorable this and honorable that, you are workers of the people of the country. You're not no higher than them. In fact, they are your bosses. And we have to get people to start reversing this whole colonialist attitude, this imperialist attitude where people in possessions of were put in charge of a business or should manage our business suddenly feel say they are the center of attention. They are the ones they're working for. They are the superior person. No, you're there to respect and ensure that the people you're there to protect are the ones held in the highest esteem. So, first of all, we need to also reform the physical layout of the courthouse, the courtroom, because that's what they do. They structured it so you go in there, and if you're not really conscious, then all of a sudden the psychological effect is, oh, I am less than these people. It's done for a reason. Nothing is done just by chance or accident. So here we have a structure now. You're going to court. These attorneys who are now given the impression that they're so much smarter and more intelligent than anybody else, placed on a podium to make a decision about your future or somebody else's future. And whatever decision they make with the judge and the court, you sit under the hole and you don't have nothing to say about it, because the attorney is the one that decides. And when they didn't make that decision, then it's final. Again, taking your power, your constitutional right and power, your human rights, are being violated by the structure of the court. So the corruption extends throughout the system. And I point out again, now it's not me. Go look up Google, look up corruption in countries, and look up where Jamaica is on the list of corrupt countries, and how we consistently make that list. Because we have judges who have been programmed and attorneys who have been programmed to think they have the right to subjugate and step on people's rights and lives and make decisions regardless of whether they have the right to do so or not. So I'm going to read. Here is it. The Justice Style say Mrs. King was confused. And even when I got Mrs. King on the stand to admit that she knew exactly what she was doing, Justice Style, when she came back the next day or whatever to read the judgment, said, oh, she believed Mrs. King. After Mrs. King said she knew what she was doing. So, there was something nefarious going on just by that. Alright, so what's confusion? So I Googled it just so you could get an idea that does this judge or these judges have any ground or foundation, intellectually or otherwise, qualified or otherwise, to make such a decision on whether Mrs. King was confused or not, without the support of expert witnesses, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a sociologist, anybody, and even a teacher. Was Mrs. King confused? No processes, nothing put in place. Confusion. I ask the question, what does confusion mean? And it goes on, well, in medical terms, because they say Mrs. King was confused, so it must be medical, because you're talking about the psychology, the mentality, the intellect of a person. You're talking about their brain waves, their brain power, how they deal with situations. So it must be a medical question. Alright? So did these judges make any medical issues or raise any questions about this? You tell me. Confusion is a term that refers to a decline in the cognitive ability. That is, our ability to think, learn, and understand. A decline in cognitive ability is often associated with dementia. So, was Mrs. King suffering from dementia when she signed this agreement? When she came to court, she certainly remembered everything. When I asked Mrs. King, so you're taking this action and the people who came in as investors will be damaged or hurt by it. Mrs. King jumped up and said, me not care about nobody else, and my money me care about. Alright? That sounds like somebody that's confused. The judge hear all of that too, and our knucklehead attorney. And I always say knucklehead because that guy was so disrespectful. And if that's how they talk to people, but it goes back to the same thing I was saying earlier, because they put them on this podium when they're talking to people in court that are there for them to resolve issues. They disrespect people. They talk to them as if, well, they're dirt. We can walk on you and wipe their foot on you because you're in court. Because I've heard it. And I'm pretty sure if you go into court, you've heard attorneys addressing people in a certain tone and manner as if, they're better than these people. And again, the structure, how the judiciary is set up in Jamaica and possibly other parts of the world, they do it for psychological reason. And then they take it to the extent where they feel they can talk to anybody, any which way. As I said, I tell that brother and they say, I didn't come to court to be disrespected. And I said it in no uncertain terms. Meaning, you better cut that crap. Don't try it with me or any intelligent person, because there are consequences when you start disrespecting people. And under the Constitution, under human rights, under natural rights, I have every right to protect that. You don't disrespect people because some structure in a court or what they tell you in law school that you're superior to somebody. You're not. You're not. Even if a person has mental issues and in court, you're supposed to respect that person. You don't have no right to step or hurt people or step on people and insult them. Walk around because you carry one piece of paper that you're an attorney. An attorney is nothing but a person who works for other people and supposed to respect their position. Nothing bigger. Mason work for people. Doctors work for people. Other people work for other people. That's what you do. Walking around about my learned friend. You're not more learned than anybody else. You're within a system that's structured. That one judge had said to me, oh, this is a specialist area. And when that judge said it to me, I was like, does this judge realize that she's telling me that the structure of the judiciary and the court is set up in such a way that it doesn't serve the people who it was intended to serve? Because if this is a specialized area, so that the people who are in court can't understand it, then it's not serving the people. It's in violation of the Constitution. Because the court should be so structured that anybody, any citizen, could walk in there and deliver the facts, deliver the truth, cite the law, and get their case heard and be won. But they structured it so they can keep these attorneys employed. And I never say don't use an attorney. If you have a good, honest attorney, by all means. The way they have things structured and the ambiguities that they have in how they operate in the courts, you really need somebody who have even a limited understanding of the system to navigate it, or they screw you over, which is their intention. And they screw you over with this lame reliance on case law. Some judge make a decision 50 years ago and you come in court in 2023 and about, oh, judge made this decision 50 years ago. No, you must hear a person's issues matter on the issues in front of the court today, 2023, not 1823. Then you make a decision. So again, I believe it is fundamentally flawed and wrong to have judges or attorneys coming citing case law on other matters, other people's businesses, and then use that to determine somebody's business. When in truth and in fact, if the case that they're relying on has fundamental facts and all of that's similar, it simply means that if a person has a case in front of the court and the law and the court, the law, the truth, the facts and the evidence point and support the person, then you have no choice but to rule in that person's favor. So you don't need case law for that. But that's what you do. That's how you undermine people's rights and then sit in this position of power. And you're powerless if the Jamaican people decide to shut it down. In short. So if you truly believe in the judiciary or being fair and honest, I'm saying again, all judges who have the intention of doing the right thing, you need to step up there and start fundamentally coming up with structures and strategies how to reform the court, that it serves people and serve them honestly, and not use the court as a means to unjustly deny people their human rights, steal their property, defraud them of their money and their ability to empower themselves and their family. Everybody has a human right to live the best life they can. And when you sit on the bench and you take that from people, then what are you? You don't know better than the Hitlers out there, or the people in the government of Syria, or the government of Russia, or the government of China. When you just take people's rights, decide that you want to do something, and no matter how it affects people, you don't care because you're in a position to manage the people's business. You just abuse it. So how are you any different? All you judges who sit there and allow these bad decisions to come out to the point where the world is saying our judiciary is dysfunctional, meaning everybody who works in there is dysfunctional, is intellectually challenged, and therefore confused. So the confusion that Mrs. King was determined to be in by this judge and subsequently the panel who decided to uphold Justice Tye's ruling are truly the ones that are confused. And confusion, again, is a term that refers to a decline in cognitive ability. So you're saying and telling Mrs. King, or saying Mrs. King was cognitively messed up. There was a decline in Mrs. King's ability to think or act normally. And if that was the case, the kind of judgment you came out with shouldn't have been made. Right? So, but this is why you say, you say Mrs. King was confused, and you believe it. That's what Justice Tye say. A person, a declining cognitive ability. That is our ability to think, learn, and understand. So, in short, you're ruling that Mrs. King couldn't think, couldn't learn, couldn't understand. In other words, Mrs. King was a big old dummy when she appeared in court in front of you. Mrs. King didn't have the ability to think, so she was behaving funny on the stand, behaving funny in court. Oh, you know what? Mrs. King, when she came on the stand, Mrs. King was wearing, I think, a black or dark, some dark outfit. And Mrs. King crunched up herself in a ball and bending over like an old lady. Mrs. King is 50-something, old lady. I mean, I have to say, Mrs. King was trying to make herself so small and speaking in this like baby voice until I got her to admit, say, she knew what she was doing, and then she come out like a, I don't know what the term, they have a term they used to use in a tegreg. She came out like a tegreg. I understood. I know I was signing a joint venture agreement. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with you because you're a thief. As I said before, she called me a thief. Imagine me spend my money and spend other people's money. She come to my office and sign agreement. She take my money and then go try to defraud me of our money, because that's what happened. And then you call me a thief? Because we did spend a whole lot of money to get the project to at least move. We spent money to get the legalities about the title cleared up. We hired staff, we moved offices to facilitate the project. So we spent a ton of money. I was spending approximately $2,000 US a month to maintain an office so we could market this project. And yet, she called me a thief. And a judge would sit up there telling about, she's surprised that I'm still doing real estate business and I don't have a real estate dealer's license, and this is a matter that you could end up in prison. She never used the term prison basically, but she's saying it's a matter that's a crime pretty much that could land you in jail, and yet you're still doing this thing. And I'm functioning under the law. So you see the offensive nature of how these people treat people. Because I'm there, I'm the one that's being ripped off. My partners are being ripped off. And these judges up there going to tell me about, you're lucky you're not going to jail, in short. I remember the bastard Williams, Mr. Alexander Williams, when the judge mentioned it about going to jail. About, not yet. Not yet. That's what the bastard say, in court. When the judge implied about going to jail, him, oh, not yet. In a sarcastic tone. And you think we should have put up with that garbage in courts from attorneys? As I say, I'm barking up the wrong damn tree. And I hope him realize that. Because me not take no nonsense when it comes to my rights as a human being. I'm in New York already, you know. And I was in a particular establishment. And the police them want to I think it was 113 precinct in Queens. They come and raid the establishment. The people them not do anything or brought no law. A black detective come in, take a vial with crack in there and throw it beside the dispatcher, and the dispatcher see him and say, take up that effing thing. Don't left it in here. You know American speak. She was American. VS. Her designation was VS. And VS was like, don't you dare put that effing shit in here. Take it out. The same black detective now, everybody is white in there. The police them will come in. This black cop, the cop then get the crack, got throw up on the people on the floor so then could have locked them up. And they're telling everybody else in there, hit the wall, hit the wall. I stand up in the middle of the room and I watch all of them because I not commit no crime. I am in there to take care of business. I not hit no wall. And them doing a search, some of the guys almost have heart attack, then start cough, then this, that. Stretch. All people, all men, all of them over 50 are in this place because they want to come and shut down the black business. Them do that. And that is what go on in a court. That's how you abuse your power. So I'm saying, I never took it then. I remember once I was also riding in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens, in the Softon Boulevard area, 150th Street, I remember. And they had this block. Pure drugs themselves down there. And this lady's daughter apparently was on drugs, and she asked me if I could take her down there because she don't see her daughter, and she went and go look for her, and she want to see if she's down there because she was spending off the people's money and draining them and them trying to support her habit. And nice girl too, people from middle class family, nice neighborhood, but she got hooked, and it's an illness, so I'm not going to cuss her out. But so I went down and took the lady to go look for her daughter. So when we got to the intersection of 158th Street and I think 107th Avenue, what people on the street, Chinese stores or Korean stores where they sell food, people that push money through some crack hole and collect stuff out, and it was so busy. It was like a Christmas weekend. And then I'm going through the intersection cautiously now, because there was no stop light or anything. This cop in a blue and white car, one of them old Dodge cars, I don't know if you remember what they look like, a square looking Dodge car, pull up, wind down in window, signal me for wind down my window, because he was going in the opposite direction. You better get out of here, buy no drugs down here tonight. In an American tone. I'm just saying it, paraphrasing, and buy no drugs down here tonight. And my reaction was, who the hell you think you're talking to? You know me? Who the hell you think you're talking to? And he looked for me and he drive down. So when him drive off, the lady said, oh, you know who that is? There's some big sergeant from down at 113 precinct. I said, I don't give a shit. You don't come talk to me like that. You don't know me. You tell me about come buy drugs. Because I knew my rights. And yeah, if him ever will hit me or do not like that, guess what? I already lined up to take him to court. So I guess there's a sense, he said, listen, this is a person or somebody you can just step on. Because that's how they treat people. And that's how they used to treat black people. And maybe I was crazy at the time. They said, God, look out for mad people and psycho people. So maybe that night he didn't think I was psycho, but God looked out for me. Because him certainly never bothered me. And I went about my business. I'm just saying, when you know your rights, you stand up for your rights. You don't let people take your rights and abuse you. And that is why our ancestors fought back against these slave owners. They went up in the hills and they fought back. They got involved with natives that were Caribbean people before the Columbus them claimed they discover, and they fought. They became maroon. They come, and they fought back both South America all over the place because they know they had the right to do that. You know, just take nonsense. And I'm saying this to everybody: don't take nonsense. Step up and stand up for what is going to protect your interest. Because you see, when you're negligent and you're laid back and you allow it to happen, people take your rights and take it from you. Them take it from you. And when people know they can't handle you like that, then treat you any which way. So here again, in concluding on this whole matter of the corruption in the courts, I'm asking you to become involved. Help to get the word out about this ruling. Call your banks, let them know it's out there. If you have a mortgage, you want to call your banks. And if the banks and them all not deal with it, guess what? It's to your advantage. Make them crash the economy if they don't want to fix it. Because it means you don't have to pay back any loan or honor any agreement that was illegally formed in the first place, or is a byproduct of an illegal arrangement. And you can see the logic. Which means you can now stop paying those mortgages and put your money in your own pocket. Alright? So don't be foolish. When you see advantages, you take advantage of it. I've suggested in the past that while all of this is being worked out, if they don't want to fix it, if government don't fix it, if these people don't take the court to task and fix it, then it means the longer they take, the more you can save your money. The more money you have to do other things and invest or whatever. And when they do fix it, they can't even hold you liable for any kind of non-payment because you can't participate legally in illegal activity or illegal contracts. So technically, as far as I'm concerned and the way I look at it, that's money in your pocket. What they would have to do is pick up the payments at a point when they resolve this issue. So hopefully if they resolve it quickly, then you don't have to. And again, it's to your advantage. You don't want it, then fine. I've been giving you this indication for weeks and weeks about what could happen because of the events that Justice Tai, the rulings that Justice Tai did even before this ruling by the appeals court. And everybody is quiet on it as if, well. So from that perspective, I kind of feel like how Marcus Garvey probably felt when he did everything he could to empower his people, and them same people he was trying to empower, them same one turn on him like on a dime. And turn on him. The vast majority of them turn on him. The same people him work for, the ship liners, the businesses, they're the ones that turned on him. No support when the government came after Marcus Garvey. Same thing with Malcolm X. Malcolm X thought they talk about black people and their rights and so on. No support for him. The minute they take out Malcolm X, all of a sudden everybody start painting Malcolm X as a bad person. And in fact, I think Jamaica, the Jamaican government had banned Malcolm X from coming into Jamaica. Freedom of speech. And even though Farrakhan is out there, I think they had banned or tried to ban Farrakhan as well. Anybody that was pro-black and actively black and speaking black about them own people. Imagine the island of Jamaica banning somebody. The only reason they couldn't stop Marcus Garvey is because Marcus Garvey was Jamaican, so they can block him from coming back. But if they could, they would. And I guess that's why they sent Garvey back, or he went back to England at that time rather than coming into Jamaica, because there was no support here either. And it's the same thing. I'm saying all of that to you, that if you don't learn to stand up for yourself and what's right, form committees, form communities with other people so that you have support, your back is backed, go out and defend your rights. Because in defending your rights in what's happening with this whole ruling, you're protecting your asset and your future. Thanks again for listening. My intent is to share the experience, to get the message out, So I'm asking you to share it, subscribe. Remember, it doesn't cost you a dime to subscribe, by the way. So I have had several thousand people, I think over 20,000 people are pretty much viewed these tapes over the last, I think I started maybe 2-3 months ago. So that's a lot of people. But if you subscribe, it means that more people will see these videos, because based on the algorithm I hear they use, the more people that subscribe and the more people that visit or watch or share, the more they'll push the videos. And it makes sense for them, because if it's something that's interesting to people, then they want people to keep coming back, because they look at other stuff, and it means they have the opportunity to sell ads and make more money. So it works for them, it works for us. If you get this information out, it's going to help protect not only your business, my business, everybody's business, but it also brings us into a position of where we're so conscious of our rights that we won't put up with any foolishness in the future. And politicians can't play with us, judges can't play with us, because they learn a position in life. They're working for us, not the other way around. And I don't care how vexed you want to be, or you think you're going to take revenge on me. You can only do so much. It's foolish to try to avenge the exposure you're getting, because the exposure you're getting is as a result of your own doing. If you were monitoring the people you have working in the judicial system, and I'm talking about judges who are honest and decent and upright and law-abiding, if those judges were insisting on the system cleaning out those bad eggs, those rotten eggs, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I am not a villain here. I am a victim, and so are my partners. So is every Jamaican that your bad ruling affect. The country itself. Imagine you can collapse this country, because when the economy collapse and collapse bad, chaos, anarchy, all of that stuff can take place. And it's as a result of 4 people allowing a bad decision to be made based on your own prejudice. Because this ruling can't be because you dealt with the facts or the law or the truth or the evidence. Because I put so much evidence in front of the court that it's indisputable. You can't dispute it. The other side not put no evidence in front of the court to even suggest that the woman was confused, to even suggest that we did anything illegal. She came to us. She invited other people to invest their money into a joint venture project, which is not illegal. But yet these judges suddenly decided, let Mrs. King walk with money, or walk with investor money. So why is the FSC out there if the court can just allow people to walk with people investment money? What kind of regulation or regulators are out there to protect people and their money from unscrupulous people like Mrs. King and people are irresponsible like those people in court? Thank you. Have a great day. I'm going to be working on a whole bunch of documentation, because I said I've sent information to some of the banks. I've sent information to NHT. I've sent information to even the real estate board, and gave them a breakdown of the implications of the ruling. I was supposed to send them the judgment itself, the written judgment. I think I forgot to attach it, but I tried to do that as well. But I told them where they could go get it. It's on the Court of Appeals site under judgments, and the judgment was given on the 31st of March 2023, and it's Careif, Careif Limited versus Valrine, Valrine King. Alright, so, and it's appeal number 64 of 2018. So you don't need me to send it. You go there, look it up and forward it to your people, and as many people as you can. Look at the advantage that this thing does for you. It messes us up. We lost our money. Or so they think, because I said before, I'm going to be suing Mrs. King for get my money back. The statute of limitation based on our analysis has not expired. I won't go into more details than that, but yeah, you're going to spend another 20 years. If I'm not around to finish it, somebody will, but you're not just going to take my money and run like that. Nope. No judge can sanction people defrauding me or my partners and think it's okay, it's all over. It's not over until the fat man sings. Alright? Have a good one. Have a great day. Do the right thing. Hug yourself. Love your family. Respect other people. Respect their rights. And you will learn to protect yours. Have a good one.